Sometimes Doctor Who delivers us the glorious gift of fan service, which we did cover in a recent video. However, sometimes this happens. So, with that in mind then, I'm Ellie with Who Culture, here with 10 times Doctor Who refused to give fans what they wanted. Number 10. Bringing back Susan. If it's not the RANI, it's the Doctor's granddaughter Susan, whom fans want to return to Doctor Who. There have been references to the Doctor's family in the new series, but to date she's not returned. Now, some fans thought that the woman from the end of time was Susan rather than the Doctor's mother, as Russell T Davies had intended. Peter Capaldi even mentioned possibly seeing the Doctor's granddaughter again in an interview while he was playing the Doctor. Capaldi's love of being photographed with classic companions on the Doctor Who's set only fueled a desire to see Susan and her grandfather reunited. The granddad bit between the Doctor and Bill in Knock Knock and the photo on the Doctor's desk at the university only seemed to hint to viewers that a Susan return was imminent. And then when David Bradley's appearance as the first Doctor was revealed, it was surely a shoo-in that Susan would return for the final Christmas special. Whether it was a deliberate troll or not, the reintroduction of Bill in Twice Upon a Time takes slightly too long, especially as everyone already knew that Pearl Mackie was coming back. But as the figure emerged from the shadows, fans could be forgiven for anticipating that this could have been the return of Carol Ann Ford. Perhaps one day she'll come back. Number 9. The return of the RANI. What do Sarah Lancashire, Keeley Hawes, Michelle Gomez and Barbara Flynn all have in common beyond being Doctor Who guest actors? They've also all been mistakenly believed to be playing a new version of the RANI in New Who. Despite having only appeared in 2 stories and a Children in Need special, Kate O'Mara's performance is so memorable that the character has become beloved within Doctor Who fandom. So much so that any female guest cast announcement has been met by fervent speculation that the actor involved will be playing the RANI. This reached a head when Michelle Gomez was revealed to be a female incarnation of the Master rather than the RANI. Why turn the Master into a woman when there's an evil Time Lord female right there, complained the fandom. Well, probably because the rights to the character were held by classic Doctor Who writers Pip and Jane Baker, who first created her. The husband and wife writing team are no longer with us, so it's unclear where that leaves the character now. Regardless of boring legal things like rights, you can expect to see Gillian Anderson's inevitable casting opposite Ncuti Gatwa linked back to the villainous Time Lord geneticist. Number 8. Paul McGann as the Doctor in 2005. The 2003 announcement of Doctor Who's return was incredibly exciting for fans as the show celebrated its 40th anniversary year. Once the initial excitement died down, thoughts turned to whether or not this would be a continuation or a remake. Strangely, that debate continued throughout the first series in some dark corners of the internet, right up until the 10th Doctor was reunited with Sarah Jane Smith and K9 in Season 2. One of the key stumbling blocks for fans was the fact that Paul McGann wasn't involved in the new show. This was seen as hugely disrespectful by some and a missed opportunity by others. Some fans were particularly flummoxed by the idea that they wouldn't get to see McGann regenerate into Christopher Eccleston, and when McGann did return in 2013, they saw him regenerate into John Hurt instead. Of course, Russell T Davies was right to stick to his guns. Paul McGann had been the Doctor in novels, audio dramas and comic strips since 1996. What would you do with all those already existing stories? In not establishing exactly what happened to the 8th Doctor, Russell T Davies spun a mystery that gave the Doctor an intriguing and emotional backstory for new audiences, while providing intriguing teasers for fans about the state of the Doctor Who universe during the Doctor's absence from our screens. Number 7. Bringing back the Christmas special. Doctor Who was a huge part of the BBC's Christmas Day schedule for over a decade. The Voyage of the Damned, which starred Kylie Minogue, was watched by over 13 million people. When Chris Chibnall took over Doctor Who, the Christmas special became a New Year special instead, and fans have demanded the show return to Christmas Day ever since. The shift to New Year actually made a lot of sense at the time. In recent years, New Year's Day has been when the BBC launches its flagship new dramas. For example, Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss' Sherlock regularly debuted on New Year's Day. So rather than being a sign of the BBC's lack of interest in Doctor Who, it's a sign that the show's seen as a flagship drama rather than appointment television for the whole family. But that's definitely a problem, especially as the show should always be striving to reach a new, younger audience. Number 6. A Rose Tyler spin-off. When Doctor Who's 2005 relaunch proved to be a massive hit, the BBC began thinking about spin-offs. This led to the creation of both the Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood, but those discussions with Russell T Davies led to some other potential projects. One of these was a kids' show about the Doctor's youth on Gallifrey, but Russell T Davies rightly vetoed this idea on the basis it would have removed the Who from Doctor Who. Another spin-off that would have fared much better with fans was the mooted Rose Tyler Earth Defense. Set in a parallel Earth from Season 2, it would have focused on the Tylers' new lives as they protected the parallel world from all manner of baddies. Russell T Davies had already planned to bring the more action hero version of Rose back for Season 4, so a spin-off show would have been the perfect way to build toward it. In the end, however, Russell T Davies decided not to take the project further, believing that if the Doctor wasn't able to see what Rose was up to, then the general audience shouldn't either. However, years later, Big Finish decided that if fans couldn't see these adventures, then they could hear them instead in a series of box sets. Number 5. The Return of Doctor Who Confidential. When Doctor Who Confidential was good, it was David Tennant interviewing Stephen Moffat about their respective childhoods as Scottish Doctor Who fans. When Doctor Who Confidential was bad, it was extensive footage of actors standing around in padded jackets in quarries at 3 in the morning. However, it was a show that tapped into the fascination Doctor Who fans have with how the show is made, and its absence is keenly felt to this day. Confidential was cancelled by the BBC back in 2011 due to budgetary issues. It was replaced by behind-the-scenes featurettes and Doctor Who The Fan Show that would both appear on the official Doctor Who website or its YouTube channel. Doctor Who Confidential was often a fascinating insight into the making of the show and the decisions of those involved, so it's easy to see why fans miss that level of engagement. Rumours currently circulate that Confidential will return for the second Russell T Davies era, but fans shouldn't expect to return to the glory days of classic monster montages set to What's That Coming Over the Hill. The more likely replacement for Confidential is a post-episode chat show like Talking Dead or After Trek. Number 4. A proper 30th anniversary special. Doctor Who had been off the air for almost 4 years as it approached its 30th anniversary in 1993. Fans hadn't given up hope on the show returning though, especially when news broke of a feature-length straight-to-video movie. Doctor Who in the Dark Dimension had an incredibly complicated, troubled production and never made it as far as filming. With a proper Doctor Who anniversary special now quashed, fans had to make do with the surviving 5 Doctors and their companions interacting with the cast of EastEnders. Dimensions in Time, a 3D charity sketch for children in need, got a lot of unfair stick from fans who wanted this darker, grittier Doctor Who anniversary that had been previously promised. And yet, as anyone who's read the script will tell you, Doctor Who may have had a lucky escape from the Dark Dimension. At least in Dimensions in Time, each of the Doctors get a decent share of screen time. In the Dark Dimension, the majority of the doctoring is done by an older Tom Baker, because the 4th Doctor was prevented from regenerating. They probably felt that Tom Baker was more of a draw for audiences, which may have been the case, but the plot of the considerably longer The Dark Dimension is just as convoluted and nonsensical as Dimensions in Time. Worse still, it wouldn't have featured Frank Butcher or the Mitchell brothers. If you are interested in finding out more about this unmade movie, then be sure to check out our video covering just that. Number 3. Bringing back the Brigadier. Even though it was a reboot, Russell T Davies' 2005 revival of Doctor Who wasted no time in bringing back old elements. The Autons were the first villains, and UNIT briefly appeared in Aliens of London and World War III. And yet, despite this, the legendary head of the organisation, Alistair Gordon Lethbridge-Stewart, never appeared in the new series. Given the Doctor's psychological trauma from the Time War, a story that paired the 9th Doctor with an equally battle-scarred Brigadier would have been fascinating. Sadly, it wasn't to be. The Brigadier was always in Peru, which increasingly sounded like a euphemism for actor Nicholas Courtney's ill health. He did get to appear in the Sarah Jane Adventures and was due to appear alongside David Tennant in another Sarah Jane Adventures episode, but unfortunately Courtney was too ill to take part, sadly dying months later. When the Brigadier did eventually reappear in Doctor Who, it was in the hugely controversial Death in Heaven, in which the character's corpse was reanimated as a Cyberman to save the Doctor and Kate Stewart from Missy's machinations. There was also a brief vocal cameo in Flux, but it doesn't make up for the fact that this legendary Doctor Who character never got to share a scene with any of the 21st century Doctors. Number 2. Resting the Daleks. Everyone loves the Daleks, right? Well, not exactly. Since the show returned in 2005, there hasn't been a single Doctor Who series that hasn't featured the Daleks in some capacity. Now, there was no Dalek special during David Tennant's final year, but one still did a flyby in a flashback during the Waters of Mars. And Matt Smith's second series didn't have a Dalek story, but a wrecked Dalek popped up to have its brain examined by the Doctor in The Wedding of River Song. There's just no escaping the Daleks, and these small cameos run the risk of lessening their impact when they return. Chris Chibnall was criticised for featuring the Daleks in each of his New Year specials, but to be fair to him, he's not the only showrunner who loves a Dalek. Classic Doctor Who had regular large gaps between Dalek stories, with only 2 Dalek serials in Tom Baker's entire 7-year run. The Daleks are great, obviously, but absence makes the heart grow fonder. It would be amazing if after their appearance in Jodie Whittaker's finale, they don't appear for a few years, returning in full strength toward the end of Ncuti Gatwa's run, potentially. However, whether it's for contractual or audience engagement reasons, you can expect to see them sooner or later. Number 1. The classic TARDIS interior. Modern TARDIS interiors have covered the full spectrum of the good, the bad, and the ugly. However, none of them have ever been able to live up to the sleek, classic white room from the original 1963 to 1989 run. This wouldn't be so bad if the show didn't continue to tease fans by showing how good that interior looks on modern TVs. Fans first got a look at the classic TARDIS interior of sorts in The Day of the Doctor, when it glitches into the War Doctor's console room. Then there was the TARDIS that the Doctor and Clara used to escape Gallifrey in Hellbent. Then there's the first Doctor's TARDIS in Twice Upon a Time. And finally, in Fugitive of the Jadoon, the Ruth Doctor has a variation on the classic TARDIS interior. Each time the classic console room appears, it looks considerably cooler than whatever one the incumbent Doctor is currently occupying. It's appeared in the modern run so many times now that any suggestion it wouldn't work on modern telly loses all credibility. Let's hope they finally take the plunge and put Ncuti's Doctor in this design classic. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed any, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a Who Culture video. While I've got you, I'd just like to say a massive thank you for helping us pass the 100k mark. You are all amazing. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there at Who Culture. And I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with Who Culture, and in the words of River Song herself, goodbye, sweeties.